Okay, perfect. So today we have Sofia Yanez, who is going to talk to us about her experience as a nursing student and now as a registered nurse. So, Sofia?
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, so my name is Sofia Yanez. Like she said, I'm a nurse. And this is just a little bit about me. So we're just going to talk about briefly just my background and just my story, I guess, with like high school and like applying to college, and just kind of how the application process looked like for nursing. And I'll also just go into like the regular college experience and the nursing school as well, which is very different. And then just a little bit after graduating. Okay, so I was born in Monterrey, Mexico, and I moved here when I was 7. I was actually really interested in the arts growing up, so I did a little bit of that throughout high school and middle school. But then once I was ready to kind of think about my future, I just started taking more like healthcare courses in high school that we had offered to us. And so that kind of helped me find that passion for healthcare. I went to Westside High School, so that is an HISD. And then I graduated in 2018. And I am now a registered nurse. So I got a bachelor's of science in nursing with Texas State, and I graduated in May of 2022. And then it's crazy to say this, but now I've been working as a nurse for 3 years in the medical center. So I work at Memorial Hermann in a mother baby unit. And I'm also currently training new graduate nurses. Okay, so a little bit about my high school background. So like I said, I went to Westside High School. They did offer like career focused classes there. So there's like engineering, business, healthcare, and also like the arts. So I did start off in engineering actually because my dad's an engineer. So I thought that was something that was going to be intriguing for me. But after my freshman year, I realized it's not really for me. So I did switch over to healthcare, and I started taking more classes geared towards that. So I did biology, anatomy and physiology, and then ultimately they let you apply to like this practicum course for your senior year. And so I got in, and that was really helpful for me to get experience firsthand with like just the hospital setting, what that looks like. Even though I was still pretty young, I was like 17, 18 years old. But it was really helpful to kind of know if I could really see myself doing that. So that was super helpful. And we did do that at the West Houston Methodist campus. So it's a super nice campus. And it was just a really good experience for me. Um, Other things I did throughout high school was just like extracurriculars. So I was part of the National Art Honor Society. Like I said, the arts were just super intriguing for me. And I was a historian for that society, club, organization thing. And then I had like a few summer jobs here and there, not really related to what I do now, but just to like, make money as a high school student. Volunteering work. So I would do like the food bank. I also did ASPCA where you can like adopt dogs. So I got to help out with that. It was such a great experience. I highly recommend. I don't know if they still allow like high school students to do it, but it was a really good experience. I loved it so much. And then I also did AP classes. So kind of just like the general AP classes that everyone takes, like I don't know, like eco, what else? Like history, just anything you can knock out for like prereqs in college, all like the basic courses. It was really helpful to just kind of have that in my bag before I even went off to college. I did CPR training as well, and then just like other clubs that I would find in school. But yeah, that's me when I graduated high school, and then the other photos, me with some of my classmates from that practicum class that we did back in high school. I noticed some people had questions in other presentations about like GPA and stuff like that, so I did kind of dig through my stuff from back in the day. Um, so just like a few numbers, my school had 670 students in the class that we graduated in, so I was 75, first quartile, and that was my last weighted GPA was a 4.2. SAT scores I could not find. I forgot about that, but I do remember I didn't do that great on it. It was probably like a 1280, something like that. That was kind of my one of my weaker points when I was applying to college. So just for y'all to get a picture of that, you don't have to be perfect in every single area, but that's just one of those things. Um, So a little bit about how to find the right school for you. So sometimes, we all want to have like this, we have like this one dream school, and then once you get down to the details, you're like, wait, maybe this is actually not the best fit for me. So I just kind of did a little outline of what I was considering back then. So I would just suggest for y'all to kind of dig deep and think about why you want to go to that school. Is it because, just superficial things like all your friends are applying there? Are your parents pressuring you to go there? Is it like a financial situation where, I don't know, it just depends on everyone's background, but just kind of think about why you want to go there. Is it just one thing? Like just kind of have like a pros and cons list. Also, like your major, I know sometimes people go into college, they don't know exactly what they want to do quite yet, but as long as you have like a general area or you think, okay, like if I do this, but maybe I want to do this as well, like do they have both options at this school or is it just focused in one area? Because a lot of people do end up changing their mind throughout college. So, um, it's also not that deep though. I think it's fine to make mistakes. And I mean, you go to college looking back, it's like you're so young and sometimes you just can't foresee the things that are going to happen while you're in college, whether or not you change your major. So, I mean, post grad, like a lot of workplaces, like your college does matter, and I think it can give you a big advantage, but also like it's not a big of a deal if you don't go to like the top school in the state or in the country. Like at the end of the day, you're focused on your education and your experience, and that will help you kind of just network with people there and help you find a job ultimately. For me in healthcare, I go to school with people, or I go to work with people that went to school from all over the world, really, and like all over the country. It really doesn't matter for us, at least. It's more so about your work ethic and just like your people skills. Another thing to consider is also just like financials, the lifestyle there at the college town. If you're really like home away from home. Um, I think being in Texas, it's also a little bit hard because a lot of colleges are not in big cities sometimes. And like for me personally, I'm a big city person. So when I was going off to college, I was just like, okay, like I don't really want to be stranded in the middle of nowhere. Like that gives me a lot of anxiety to think about. So just kind of keep that in mind. Also like meal plans and just day-to-day life, what does your lifestyle look like now? And like, are you comfortable with where you are if you live like in Houston or Katy? How do you want college to look like? Are you okay with going in a smaller town where like everyone is like very close knit? Or do you like to have that big city vibe? Um, and also just like being homesick, it's really big for everyone, honestly, not even just freshmen. I think even especially Latinos, I feel like it's hard to be away from family, even if some of us just want to be away from our parents at that age. I promise there'll be a point where you might miss home, even if it doesn't seem like it right now. Um, and then, of course, like financially, college debt is very real. I was very lucky in that area, but, people kind of overestimate what they can afford and they get excited about going to that top school again. Like financials are super important as well. Make sure that you're thinking about that with your family as well. So applications, super stressful time, just like a few tips that I found helpful. Try not to over apply or apply somewhere for no reason. Just make sure it aligns with what I mentioned earlier. Make sure you take breaks and you talk to other people that want to major in something that you're interested in. And just try to help each other out because, yeah, like every major is just a little bit different, especially with nursing. Like, applying to college, like you don't go right away into nursing. Some schools kind of don't start until your junior year. So just kind of keep that in mind again. Like, let's say you don't end up liking nursing, like, is that college going to have other options for you? Um, and then some of the schools that I applied to, so UT Austin, Texas State, University of Mary Hardin, Baylor, and then the actual Baylor University, St. Thomas, and then UCLA was kind of like my only out-of-state school that I applied to. Um, so this list is interesting because I really wanted to stay in Texas, but I did give myself the option to just kind of like shoot for the stars, if you will. Like UCLA for me was really out there. I did not get in, but it was just nice to have, the idea that you gave yourself the opportunity to kind of try. But I would definitely just kind of narrow it down to that, like try not to like have too many of those because again, all these, depending on, I don't know how high school works now, but I know sometimes they have like vouchers and stuff like that if you're applying to certain colleges. if you have an opportunity, definitely take advantage of it. But for me, I was like, this is just like my one big shot and I'll do it, but definitely try not to overdo that. Um, and then like I talked about, yeah, nursing majors in specific. So not all schools offer nursing immediately. Most of the time you have to apply to that later in your college career. So why I chose Texas State, so kind of like my own personal pros and cons list. So for me, the location was pretty big. Like I said, I'm a big city person. So it's near Austin, San Antonio, and Houston. It's a beautiful campus if y'all ever seen it. It's also kind of a newer campus and they're constantly like renovating. I know when I left, they were like building a new engineering building that was really nice and all this stuff on there. Very warm summers. What else did I write on here? Very important for me to thrive as a student for sure, because my environment really helps me feel comfortable. And then of course, like the river is there and tubing is such a big thing in San Marcos. Financially, they offer loans and tuition was reasonable for me. And then major wise, like education, nursing school there is pretty competitive, so it was a really good program for me to look into. And then some cons. I would say the reputation was a big one, which I didn't really know about until I started going there. But I guess people say it's like a party school, which I personally didn't really think that. It just kind of depends where you're at as a student. But I would argue like UT and A&M are much bigger party schools just because they're bigger schools in general. But I mean, any is really going to be a party school. Like it just depends on you and what kind of environment you put yourself in. Another con is like the football culture there. It's just not as big. I think now they're doing better as a team, but for me, it didn't really matter at the time. I was more focused on my education. So yeah, for me, there was really no cons. Like this school was gonna be it for me. And of course, that's me, graduated from there. Okay, so some of the ups and downs from my college experience. Um, So unfortunately, I did go into school a little bit before COVID hit. So that was a big one. My freshman year, I think for everyone, it's just a big year for you to just kind of adjust to being away from home and like studying and just kind of what your routine looks like. So that can be a challenge in of itself for everyone. And then my sophomore year, spring break is when COVID hit. So we all went online. That was a huge change for me. I mean, I was already trying to get through some of the prereqs for nursing school, so I really had to be extremely focused. And it was so hard to focus when we were all at home. I was back in Houston with my parents, and it was just really hard for me to kind of be extremely focused at the time. And then I also had to apply to nursing school during that time. So it was just extremely anxiety inducing for me. I had a really rough time, honestly. But at the same time, like you have, the student body to kind of lean on. Professors also were kind of helpful with that. But that's kind of like a double-edged sword. Like you have some really great professors, and other times you don't have really great professors. And so you also kind of learn to navigate that throughout the years in college. Sometimes, you have to just speak up for yourself and kind of learn what resources you have at school if you're having a rough time. And so, like I mentioned with nursing school, you do have to apply most of the times again for actual nursing school in your junior year. So, you kind of get over like, oh, I got into college, I'm excited, I'm getting comfortable. And then it's like, okay, time to lock in for nursing school again. So, again, just very stressful time. But I think in total, I applied to maybe just three or four nursing schools because I still wanted to stay in Texas. And the easiest like pathway for me was just going to be in Texas State anyway, because the way I started school was already like pre-nursing. So all of our courses are already kind of lined up for you to be ready to go into nursing school with Texas State. But I did notice that whenever I applied to other schools, I think like I don't know, like A&M or I don't remember which other one. I think maybe UH also had a new nursing program back then. They might ask for different courses. So like if you're already applying, you realize that it might be too late or you might need to extend your time in like the undergrad college like span to kind of like do other courses or even in the summertime try to catch up, I guess. So I do recommend for you to try to kind of look into that earlier because that's kind of a mistake that I did. Had I wanted to go somewhere else, like maybe just try to think about that like freshman year. It might be too early, but just to kind of have it in the back of your head, like, okay, if I want to apply here, maybe I should try to take this course just in case. Um, but yeah, otherwise, homesick, like I said, a lot of people struggle with that. Again, I think especially like Latinos, anyone really that's cultured, it's hard to leave your family behind sometimes. I know I struggle with that, even though I wasn't that far away. College summers too can be challenging. I think there's like a lot of pressure for people to like be doing something productive. I think freshman summer, like going to sophomore year is probably a good time for you to just kind of like relax and like take everything in like as a new college student. But maybe the summer after that is when maybe you should try to look into like internships or just like jobs or any kind of experience that maybe you're interested in to kind of just expand your horizons in your career. Definitely important. Don't put it off until your senior year. Um, and yeah, just anxiety, like I said, with COVID and just college. I mean, it's super normal. And like the only reason why I put it on here is because I feel like sometimes it's still taboo for people to talk about. But, I'm a nurse and I feel like it's important to talk about that. But I mean, I'm sure you guys experience that now and like thinking about college, to just know like even when you're in college, you might still be a bit anxious and that's totally normal. But again, a lot of schools have really big support for their students in terms of like mental health. So definitely look into that in your college. And then social life, I mean, there's a lot that goes into that, but there's so many events. Like if you ever feel like you're the only one that's going to be going there from your school or like you don't know anyone there at all. I mean, they have so many different activities for freshmen to like really integrate into the school. So that's really just, it'll just kind of come organically. Okay, and then nursing school. So these are a few pictures from my nursing school. As you can tell, we were still in the peak of COVID there. Um, so it is very stressful. Honestly, I don't remember knowing that much about nursing school in itself, back then, but it is a very stressful time, because once you get in, it's very exciting, but then you realize like all the workload that comes with it. Depending on the school, it might be like 2-year program or like 2.5. Some of them have accelerated programs. You can be done like a year and a half even. But it's definitely a time for you to grow a lot as a person and as a student. I feel like I learned so much like in my personal life and just obviously my career. But I will say, like, once you graduate and you're a licensed nurse, like, it's a lot better than nursing school. I mean, nursing school gets really bad rep because it's really challenging, but it's definitely worth it. So don't give up. And it's really important to have a good support system. So there's really no time for bad influences. I feel like I had some classmates that unfortunately were going through some difficult times in their personal lives, and I feel like I mean, you're so young, you're like 21, 22 years old. Like, it's so easy to fall into bad influences, but like nursing school, I mean, it's kind of like going into med school in a way. Like, you really have to be extremely dedicated to that. So, definitely keep that in mind. It can be difficult to have that school life balance, but you definitely need to lock in and have a good study routine in order to graduate. So a few things from my nursing school, definitely a really good clinical experience despite COVID. I highly recommend Texas State. The nursing school there is really good. It's a small-ish class. It's about 100 students. I don't know how big it is now, but most professors there are very friendly and they're very helpful. Since it's a bit smaller, you also just kind of build really good relationships with everyone, a lot of bonding. I mean, even in your clinicals, you get kind of split up, so you get even smaller and smaller. And there's also a lot of networking too with nursing school. So you do have time to go to clinicals, and that's kind of where you meet other nurses or maybe new grad nurses or even older nurses. So you just get a lot of exposure to the field, and it really helps you kind of see where you want to go. And then, yeah, so every nurse wants to help out. And then for us, the clinicals were in Austin Community and City Hospital. So you kind of get a good look at what it looks like to be like in a suburbs hospital versus a big city hospital in Austin. So you kind of get an idea of what that looks like. And we also did like outpatient nursing, and like school nursing even, which was really cool. So yeah, it was a really good experience despite all the stress. I did like it. And then just a little bit about post-grad life. So the best part, honestly. Um, So you definitely get your life back, and that's what it feels like graduating nursing school. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm finally done. So a lot of people at nursing school do have jobs lined up even before they graduate. So I actually just trained, or I had like a student shadow me recently, and she graduates like in May, and she already has a job lined up in the NICU. So that is pretty common. But for me, because I was really burnt out as a student, I did take a break after I graduated. So I took off that summer, and then I started applying in the fall. But some of the things they ask you for are just like a transcript, like your resume, sometimes ask for a cover letter, recommendation letters from like professors, or even like if you work as like a tech or anything like that during nursing school, they really do care about that. And then right now, mostly everything is online, so it's really easy to do that. They also have a lot of in-person hospital hiring events. So if you are trying to like get employed in Houston, they do like the big hospitals all have big hiring events like a few times a year. Um, for me, one of the challenges I faced was just like not doing clinicals in Houston. So I kind of just didn't know like what to expect from each hospital in terms of like the reputation there. So I kind of just went in blind, but I did hear that there's like Facebook groups for like nurses, like new graduate nurses and things like that. So you can kind of just get the scoop on what that looks like. And then for me, I applied to Texas Children's, Memorial Hermann, and Methodist. I did get lucky because I already had my license. So I got my license like in June, like a month after I graduated. I took my NCLEX, which is the test that you take to get licensed. And so since I wasn't working, my license was just active. And when I applied in the fall, they told me like, oh, well, you already have your license ready. Like, do you want to just start working now? Like, we have an opening in the Texas Medical Center. So, even though I didn't intend to work where I work right now, I just got really lucky. I mean, it's a really great place to work in. So I'm really happy that worked out. And yeah, definitely just work smarter, not harder. I mean, this is very similar to applying to college. Like, just apply as much as you can, but also don't overdo it. Apply to jobs that you actually see yourself working in. Because with nursing, I mean, I was applying for postpartum. That's what I always wanted to do. But I would have like ER rooms reach out to me, ICU, um, like PD, ICU, like all types of units that, it was great to hear from, but really like I knew what I wanted to be in was in women's health, and none of those were women's health. So I was like, well, it's a great opportunity, but also like it's not really what I want to do. And some of these are like very different from women's health. So it just kind of something to think about when you're applying. And then just kind of what I do now. So in postpartum, I take care of moms and babies after delivering. We are a high risk unit, so we take basically all the patients that other Houston hospitals, I put reject, but really what that means is like if you go to, I don't know, Methodist and Katy and you are like a really high risk mom having a baby, they'll probably transfer you to my hospital just because we have the best care there for those types of patients. So it is a pretty high stress unit, but for the most part, I mean, what nurses do in that setting is like drawing labs, taking care of mom and baby, kind of just monitoring their vitals. We give a lot of meds. We educate a lot, especially those new parents that don't really know what's going on with their new baby. And then for me, something that's new is just I've been training new graduate nurses. So I've been training now for almost a year. And I love like training new grad nurses. It's like such a big gift for me, honestly. It feels very full circle for me to just have the opportunity to train new nurses to the field. And there's also a lot of advocating for patients. So, um, I will say in the medical center, at least where I work, there's a lot of it's a learning hospital, so it's a lot of residents, med students, a lot of new people in the field. So it does take a lot of communicating. I think that's something that's challenging as a new graduate nurse there is just kind of knowing how to speak up for yourself. And on top of that, you're a patient. So that is a good challenge to have, but it's definitely difficult sometimes. So yeah, you definitely have to communicate a lot with doctors and the rest of healthcare team. Big part of nursing. I also just added that nursing is very nuanced, so it's a very big field. There's so many opportunities. The most obvious one is just inpatient nursing, so hospitals, all kinds of units. And then there's also outpatient nursing. So even now, there's a lot of aesthetic nursing, so like Botox filler, like med spa setting, There's also community clinics, primary care, and we talked about schools as well. It's a big one. And yeah, just added some photos of what this little icy photo is when we froze over recently and I had to stay in the hospital for 2 nights. So that was fun. And then yeah, just all the babies we've delivered there. I recently moved, so big opportunity. I got to move closer to my job. And then I also get to do a lot of traveling as well because we only work 3 days a week. So I do get a lot of time off, and that's super, super amazing. But yeah, that's really it. I put some contact info there in case anyone has a question. I'm always open to answering anyone's question about nursing. But yeah, that's really it. Thank you.
Sophia, I do have a question. So, in nursing school, how did you manage your time? Like, how did you divide your study time with, having time for yourself? And I've heard a lot of nurses work while in nursing school to have like clinical experience, clinical hours. So, how did you manage your time with that?
Um, so it was really a lot about like having a planner. I think even now I'm a big planner. I have like a Google Calendar and I'm just like writing in like, okay, like I have an exam on this day, like how many days do I need to study for that? It also kind of depends on your syllabus and like just getting ahead of it pretty early on, getting that syllabus and like kind of getting closer to your professor and just asking like what's going to be on the test to kind of help yourself prioritize what to study and things like that. So it requires a lot of coordination and planning. What was also really helpful for me was like maybe once or twice a week, I know that I would meet up with certain group of friends that knew we would always study together. And so that was really helpful to know like, okay, like I can organize myself like this, and then I already know I'm going to see this person on this date and we're going to study about this. But it's a lot of planning. It's the best way I can explain it. I personally didn't work when I was in nursing school, but I know people that did. I know people that had kids too while they were in nursing school. So it's just, it kind of depends on what you have on your plate, but everyone just makes it work at the end of the day. And for me, like, it was challenging, but yeah, a planner is a must. Getting close to your professors, looking at your curriculum, those are the big points for sure.
And how is the workload? If you had to explain it to a high school student that's interested in pursuing nursing, how would you explain the workload?
Mm, well, to a high school student, I would say it's kind of like having all your classes are AP and it's like times five. Like it's just, it's a lot. Like you don't have a lot of classes really. I think like the first semester, maybe I only had like 3 classes, but each class also has like a lab course to it. So you have like regular lecture type content. So like, you study, you take a quiz and you take an exam, and there's 4 exams. And then part of your grade is also going to be the lab course. So that's more so based on like your skills. So if we're practicing like how to start an IV, like they might grade you on that, or whatever it is that you're doing in the lab course or the clinical course. It's also just very strict. So like most of the grade for that class is going to be lecture based. The clinical part is not really weighted as much into the grades. But yeah, it's hard to explain because I don't think honestly I was really good. I was a really good student most of my life. And then when I went to nursing school, I was like, oh, this is like a whole different level. Like I've never experienced this type of courses and stress. So it's really hard to explain, but I would say maybe like AP classes, um, but like without all the extracurriculars. Like you're just like hyper focused on a few select courses and it's just like a lot of content in a very short amount of time.
And what would you recommend a high school student that is interested in applying to nursing? What should they do in high school to kind of maximize the chances to be admitted into nursing school? Because it's pretty competitive. So how would you recommend that?
Um, well, at least for my high school, I had a huge advantage of like the health practicum course because obviously that kind of just helped me be in the setting itself. And then when I was applying to school, I would talk about that experience. But I would say like if you guys don't have access to that opportunity, you can always look into I know like different hospitals have like volunteer opportunities, so you don't need to have a degree or anything. Like you can be a high school student and apply for that. It is also pretty competitive to get into, though. I do remember trying that out, I think like one summer, and I interviewed and everything. I did not get it, but it was very strict. It's like, yeah, anything in healthcare, I think without being licensed, it's very hard to get into, but definitely reach out to any hospital volunteer. I mean, sometimes they have maybe even the career fairs. I don't know if they have. I don't know. Having direct contact with someone helps. Like I put my email up here for a reason. Like if you guys know anyone that wants to be in nursing, like please reach out to me. Like I have a wonderful unit. We have a really good educator. Like if you want to come in for a shadow, like I'm more than happy to help that happen if possible. But um another thing I would say is like CPR training is really easy to do and like there's a lot of places that offer that like for low cost. That looks good on a resume when you're applying to like shadow opportunities in hospitals or even just volunteering. Community work helps as well. Any volunteering, like I said, ASPCA, food bank, maybe even going to like your local like retirement home or like nursing type home. Sometimes they have opportunities as well. I mean, those places have need a lot of help. So honestly, I'm sure they're more than open to try to find something for you to do, even if you're not licensed.
Perfect. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for Sophia? No? Okay, well, thank you so much for your time, Sophia, and for explaining everything to us. Please take her phone number and her email. If you have any questions, please reach out to us or reach out to her. And otherwise, have an amazing weekend.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye bye.